Hello, I'm a Swedish person who for some reason is holding a teacup with the American flag on it. But that's not important. I'm also an Indiegogo funder. You see, a couple of years ago, MikeJ, the internet personality, started a project to make his first movie, NerdQuest, a LARPing-themed slasher comedy. Since I'm a big fan of his work, I was more than happy to contribute by donating some money to this. And after a long time of work, preparation and planning, now it took an awful long time with planning, preparations and work to get this film finished, and then eventually a DVD came of it. So starting as a funder, then later on becoming a DVD owner, I will now become a discusser, because I'm going to discuss this. NerdQuest. That's what I'm going to discuss. Like I said, I'm a fan of Mike's work, Shameful Sequels, Infomercialism, and also some of his music. He's even written a book that he released on Amazon. Needless to say, he's a very productive and creative person, and I really admire him for that. I also really like his comedic style. He's got this typical British deadpan delivery mixed with some really nasty type of humor. I don't know about you, but there is something about an Englishman with a nice suit saying the most horrendous things with a big smile on his face that really lightens up my day. Of course, he's not the only internet celebrity involved in this. There's also Matthew Buck, aka Filmbrain, known for Bad Movie Beatdown and Projector. There's Stuart Ashens, whose movie Ashens and the Quest for the Game Child I already talked about in a different video. There's Guru Larry, or Larry Bundy Jr., Lawrence Simpson, aka Masako X. That was a close one. Jill Berup, aka Sursum Ursa, who's just been picked up at thatguywiththeglasses.com. Congratulations. Harry Partridge, or Happy Harry. And then there's Rick Bush, who also reviews things on the internet, and he also directs stuff. So the movie is about John, played by Matthew Buck, who's this LARPer and also quite a lonely guy since his dad has been dead for a few years. And then his mother is leaving him over the weekend to go on a cougar spree of some sort, I guess. So he's left alone with his friends who don't necessarily share all of his interests, but when they hear about LordQuest, this LARPing event, and are promised mead and fit girls, they are anxious to follow him to the woods. When the LARPing actually begins, they are sort of disappointed in what they are facing, hoping to pick up some chicks and do some drinking, and being faced with a bunch of geeks in medieval clothing and plastic swords. And they aren't really taking it very seriously and don't treat it very respectfully, which John doesn't care much for. Oh, and then there's this thing with the cloaked murderer running around in the forest, chopping people to pieces with an actual sword. That sort of drags the whole thing down for them a bit. So this is a LARP-themed slasher comedy. MikeJ himself has compared it to Shaun of the Dead meets Suburban Nights. So, and I totally see what he means by that. I mean, it's, first of all, it's a comedy, or a horror comedy to be more precise, with average Joes thrown into a life-threatening situation. And there's also these internet celebrities working together to make something about LARPing. That is not to say, of course, that they are trying to make LARPers look bad, because both the non-LARPers and the actual LARPers have some really silly people amongst their midst. So, John, Filmbrain's character. Filmbrain has, of course, been in the anniversary movies on That Guy with the Glasses, and in the two first of those, Kick-Ass and Suburban Nights, he's really been a pretty silly character, sort of sucking up to the nostalgia critic and being a little overzealous. There's a tiny little bit of that in this too, that he's sucking up to the head of the LARPing event, Cougar. But there's also the serious side, that he's trying to make his friends show a little more respect and, not to be so freaking obnoxious. But when things start to get serious, so does he. And I'm really impressed with Matthew's acting in this. I mean, he's really got some talent, I have to say. Same with the other actors. I mean, when they wake up in the camp, finding all of the dead people and body parts, I mean, they look terrified. Like, there's this one scene when they are opening up a tent, and they look absolutely horrified at what's inside. And the great thing is that we don't even see what is inside of the tent. Well, not a close-up or anything like that, but it's sort of like with Psycho or the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that we don't see all of the gore. It's to a certain extent implied. I mean, there are things like severed heads, an eyeball and such. But besides that, not all of the gore is on screen, and that's very great. I mean, that's a very good initiative. Don't show everything and don't get too overly graphic. MikeJ himself, well, he sort of pulls an Alfred Hitchcock or M. Night Shyamalan in the sense that he is in the movie for only a little bit. He's a LARPer who tries to pick a fight with one of the non-LARPers, and then he trips and falls and gets a twig in his eye. I have a feeling that he really enjoyed mutilating himself on screen like that, but even though this is like a blend of Shaun of the Dead and Suburban Nights, it's still a little bit toned down, and that's actually a pretty good thing. It's not like they try too hard with the comedy, like, let's say, Scary Movie. They are more like parodies, and the acting is very exaggerated, but here it feels very natural with the the reactions from the characters and such. Like, here they act in a very natural way, like they are terrified that a killer is after them. When their friends get hurt and even killed, they are furious and very sad, and I love to see that. Also, the production value is pretty low, since there is a very low budget, and I'm not going to be condescending like, oh, that's a really nice drawing, let's put it on the fridge. No, I'm not saying that it's bad or so bad it's good or anything like that. I mean, this is still very well made, considering that this is MikeJ's first movie ever. And also think back to a lot of classic horror movies like the original Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre like I mentioned before, The Night of the Living Dead. NerdQuest does very much with very little is what I'm trying to say. I would like to compare this to Småstad Sleeve. It's a series of comedies, independent comedies, made by these two guys who started with the first movie, which to their own surprise got the release in the cinema and some media coverage, and since then they've made sequels and live shows in front of an audience and other projects. Sure, the severed heads and things like that don't look, as advanced as some horror movies with much higher budgets, Hollywood blockbusters and the kind. But the important thing is that this has a great tone. You know, besides the acting, the camera work is really to the movie's advantage. The music by Skitch, or Michael Skicciano, really adding a great spooky atmosphere. And the scene that's at night when the guys are holding lanterns to light themselves up, that looks really great and chilling. And some of the more violent scenes, wow, like when the killer is running over a tent where sitting Hunter, who becomes the hunted. Well, because it cuts between him sitting in the tent and the car running over the tent, and God, it looks so brutal, like, whoa. Now, this movie is actually playing a lot with conventions and, not doing what you would expect that they would do. Like the ending. At first, when I saw it, I was surprised by it, first of all, because it's actually a very short movie. It's just a little over 60 minutes long. But, it's not the length that matters. It's how much enjoyment you get of it. Because it's actually a very sudden and abrupt ending, which sort of had me scratching my head. And usually it just takes some head and shoulders for me to fix that, but that was just the first time I watched it, and it had me thinking for a while that maybe that was the whole point of it. So then I was listening to the commentary with MikeJ and Welshie, and they explained that, they were playing with people's expectations and cliches, that sort of thing, and that brought some clarity to the whole thing. Otherwise, if you go into this and you really want things to happen a certain way, you might find yourself a little disappointed. But I like that they did it that particular way. I mean, Welshie knows a lot about horror movies since he used to review them. I mean, he's sort of got the twisted sense of humor, sort of like MikeJ, but he's the kind of person who really taunts people for fun in a friendly way. I mean, I don't know if you've seen how he likes to make fun of Film Brain from time to time when they meet at conventions and such, but I'm not sure if he's the kind of guy I would like to hang out with, or I would run away from if I ever walked into him. God, I hope he's not watching this. Needless to say, I really miss his reviews. That diabolic ginger stick man, he really makes me laugh. Anyway, Welshie knows a lot about horror movies, and it's clear that he had a lot of input into the horror elements. As a matter of fact, there are some scenes when he's the one in the killer's costume. Not to give too much away, but he really seems to understand the mindset of a slasher killer. I mean, he does so much with body language, like taunting his victims and following them. There's this scene with David, Rick Bush's character, that's almost like a found footage movie, where he's standing behind him, listening to him making his last message to his loved ones, and he's just standing there tilting his head and then getting closer and closer, and it's both scary and kind of funny. So that was a great moment in this movie. Oh, and expectations, guys like, John's friends, Gavin, Dom, David, they are sort of the people you would expect to be victims. Well, they aren't necessarily the same things who get the payoff you would expect. So if you like being surprised, good for you, then you've got a lot of great stuff ahead of you. Also, this might sound a little weird, but every now and then I wonder what a certain movie would look like in black and white, so I turn down the color on the TV set and watch it in black and white, which is what I did with NerdQuest. And I have to tell you, NerdQuest as a black and white film looks pretty damn good actually. So let's talk about the DVD features. There's the commentary with MikeJ and Welshie, of course. There's also the Q&A with them on camera, answering questions from fans. A very enjoyable part of the features. There's a script reading. The part of Gavin wasn't played by Harry Potter since he wasn't present at the time, so he's replaced by Richard V. Harris. And that's really impressive considering that Richard Harris died in 2002 after playing Dumbledore in 2 Harry Potter movies, so I'm not quite sure how they pulled it off, but great job. So yeah, nicely done, Mike, with this movie. I'm really looking forward to see what else you might make of this sort. I know that he doesn't want to make a sequel. I guess that since he reviews shameful sequels, he doesn't want to risk making one himself, but whatever sorts of movies he might want to make in the future, I think we have some great stuff to look forward to coming from him. Also, I really think it's great that we are getting these movies made by internet celebs who originally have been working on YouTube and such. I've got Ashen's and the Quest for the Game Child, like I mentioned, and I have all the 3 anniversary moves from Tig with Tig, Kick-Ass Suburban Knights, and To Boldly Flee. Besides that, I have the 2 first seasons of Ninja the Mission Force, the Press Start movies, the Cinema Snob movie, Atop the Fourth Wall, Volume 1, the Cinema Snob's first review DVD. So that's something I have really great interest in. I'm also looking forward to seeing the AVGN movie, which I haven't looked at yet. Also, Linkar is working on the Atop the Fourth World movie, which I think is gonna be really awesome. If you want to buy NerdQuest, you just go to their website where you can buy it region free, so regions isn't an issue. Thanks for watching, and see ya.